state and our country with our pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, one indivisible. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Also on item number 2, I think everybody knows that Bruce Cunningham passed away, I believe about 2 weeks ago. He was a pillar in the community and did an awful lot. And he was a mud director, I think, for about 12 years. So I'd like to take a moment of silence, if you would, and remember Bruce. Thank you. All right, item number 3, receive comments of public. Anybody sign up for public comment? All right. Item 4, consider and act request for adjustments. Mike, is there any adjustments?
Not an adjustment, but it's a request from one of your customers. Customer was alerted by WaterSmart that they had a leak, slow leak. Customer lives over in West Isle. It's a large state, actually owns 2 lots. He has his own water well for his irrigation system, so he doesn't have a sprinkler. So he has a sprinkler system, but it's not hooked up to the public water system. He spent 4 days looking for this leak, allegedly, and he sent us a bill for 4 people for 4 days at $85 an hour to find a leak. He did find a leak. It actually was our leak. We had a leak, coincidentally. Anyway, he sent us a bill, and he wants you to pay this bill for $12,000 something for his people looking for a leak that turned out to be a leak that we had.
Is that something they could have notified us, then we could have checked it?
When he found the leak, he notified us. I found a leak, so we came out there, and sure enough, it was a leak.
But WaterSmart,
He still has a leak, still has a slow leak in his house. He hasn't found his leak. Probably a toilet, probably a pool, probably something, but he has not found his.
but WaterSmart
What
only
is the
detects,
recommendation to the staff?
I bring it to you. I'm recommending we don't pay it because we didn't know anything about it. We just got a bill. You all.
well, first question I have, WaterSmart detects leaks at or beyond the meter.
That's correct.
And so how is
He
it,
didn't get charged for his water because it wasn't going through his meter, but he did find a leak that we're responsible.
So he wants to pay for the people who look for
He does.
and he never called Woodlands Water and had our people go out and check?
He called and said, hey, I'm getting these alerts. It looks like I have a leak. What do I do? And they said, just look, probably one of your toilets or your pool. And we never heard
To
back.
go back to the original question, how did he get alert if it's on our side of the meter?
He didn't get alert on our side. He has a leak and he still has a leak.
He has to,
Probably a toilet. It's a small leak. This was not a small, this was.
Like
not-
you said, WaterSmart detected it.
He did. Small leak, but they'll detect a small leak. He's using, it's not continuous consumption,
his,
but it's intermediate consumption. He's
So
just,
we're talking about 2 leaks.
Yeah.
He had a leak from his meter to his house,
correct,
and we had a leak before the meter.
correct.
And
Okay.
he discovered his leak.
He
And he
discovered
just-
our leak. He has not discovered his leak,
He has discovered his leak.
not yet.
And
We
the
believe
recommendation of the staff is that we do not approve.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
Anybody read the packet that I received had the minutes of the meeting in there that were not mud one?
Yeah, there at the beginning, there's errors at the beginning of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Noticed that too.
And I think after that, it looks like ours.
It looks like it's just the first
Number bullet 4.
Just have the wrong names.
I think the motion that we approve the consent agenda with revisions made to item number 5.
It's not that way.
Oh,
You have the right.
it's right here. It says like item 14, review consideration.
Okay, on page number 2, top of the page, Director Nelson made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Seconded by Director Conant.
See that?
Yeah, and I think that's the only error.
Yeah.
And I second your motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving down to item number 10, receive the regular monthly SJRA report.
Good morning.
Morning.
A few items to go through, some in your packets, some not. I'll make them brief, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Prior to the meeting, I passed out this 20 page document. This is basically a summary of the last 24 to 26 months of the wastewater strategic plan. So there are a lot of the meetings and discussions we've had over the last 2 years, and as of recently, we found out that it's, kind of hard to tie the things we talked about 2 years ago to what we're talking about today. So what we asked the consultant to do is tie the entire 2 years together in a brief report. We asked for 5 pages, we got this. So this is no different information than what you've seen before. It just summarizes the 1,000 or so pages into 15, 20 pages. So we just asking you to take a look at this and this to serve as a refresher of the wastewater strategic plan. No action on that item, it's just information.
Yeah, and I might comment that the staff of the San Jacinto River Authority has followed this $2 million contract very closely over 2 years. And we have some directors who I don't think have been involved in the process, who have been asking for more confirmation on things that is costing us a lot of extra money. For example, how much are we funding to test pipes? It's in our packet
It's
here.
later be 1.6 million on AC water lines.
Yeah. And that's because we have directors who are objecting because they're not familiar with this. Okay? And we're incurring a lot of expenses to satisfy directors who, by the way, are more professionally competent in the engineering area than I am. But sometimes you probably ought to talk to San Jacinto River Authority if you have some ideas, because they probably already covered it. Okay.
And on that note, one thing we did do, on starting on page 10 in this report and going on after that, we did go back to old studies we did in like 2014, 2016 that showed the condition of the plant, studied those reports and the key findings. That way, like Harley said, we didn't have to go back and repeat those studies. Money's already spent, so we just brought it forward for y'all to recall.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Starting on page 15 is the operations report for the Woodlands. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. We are continuing to get projects done and move forward. No violations, which is always good. Starting on page 28 is a presentation that I gave to the trustees. It's information for y'all to review, but this is the time of year that we start going through the budget guidelines, which is basically demands, merit increases, electrical increases, stuff that we're seeing down the pipe, just to let y'all know what we're seeing now, what could affect the budget. Overall, demands look like they may be steady. We had some questions at the trustees meeting about water loss, so I've been digging into that and may be able to actually reduce water loss based on those questions, which goes with the part of the saying, if there are questions, please ask us, so I'll be looking at that a little bit more, but water loss may go down, which means sales may go up a little bit, which is always good. Besides that, you have information on merit increases, electrical demands, cost, chemical costs, and stuff like that. So good information to look at, but nothing set in stone. It's just letting you know where we sit today.
Well, I think the water loss that you show here validates putting in these new meters. Is there any way that you could translate that reduction in water loss to dollars?
Yes, 1% water loss savings is about, on the water side, about $100,000 increase in revenue.
Yeah, and so we're looking around $200,000 to $300,000 a year in revenue increase because of reduction in the loss.
Right, because before the AMI meters, water loss was about 8.5%. This is showing 5.21, but I think we're going to be able to get down to 4.5, pretty comfortably. So roughly that's $350,000, $400,000 in additional revenue over the last few years.
And the total cost of installing these new meters was what, around 15 million? Total?
18 million.
18 million. Okay.
By the way, this loss includes
Flushing and,
testing the flushing valve.
yeah.
Which is a considerable amount of loss.
Yeah.
Good information for you to look up there. Nothing set in stone. We'll come back in May with the budget, which include all the final numbers at that time.
Of course, you had that big increase in chemical prices a couple of years. Is it coming down, or is it steady, or is it still going up?
Yeah, no, it's stabilized. So chlorine was the biggest one, and we
Yeah.
from about $475, $500 a ton to $2,200 a ton in about 18 months. Same with pull tabs, anything that's chlorine based, Clorox on the shelf at Walmart, all skyrocket. What we're seeing now is we're expecting somewhere about a 3 to 5%. In here, you'll see 5 to 7, just because it's been a little bit more conservative. But the vendors are coming back right now, looking at 3 to 5% increase
Again,
again.
really?
But it's not going to be 15, 20, 30% like it was a couple of years.
I know the cost of tablets for a pool went from like $75 to like $200 and some dollars for the same bucket that you're to buy at either Sam's or Costco.
Yeah, same thing with my aerobic system.
Yeah.
Those little tablets. It's like, man, it's just bleach. But so it's going up everywhere. So then on page 42, this is an item that we are going to ask, we presented to the trustees, and we're going to ask the trustees to vote on in March. This time of year, after we've completed our annual audit, just like y'all have done, and we meet the certain criteria that's in the resolution established in the R&R fund, there's an item that comes out of that called excess funds. So at the end of the last year's fiscal year, 23, any money that's remaining, if it meets certain criteria that's established on page 42, any of those funds that are extra can go back to the MUDs for a vote. So the MUDs at that point get to decide, or the trustees may back up. It's the majority of the trustees get to decide, do the MUDs want to keep the money, or do the MUDs want to allow the river authority to keep the money and use it for certain named projects? And so we've gone a little bit more in depth this year based off of various questions from last year. There's about 9-10 pages of information here. It goes through what the actual resolution says, and then it breaks down the various projects. If the MUDs allow the river authority to keep the money, it has, starting on page 42 to 43, it talks a little bit about each of the projects the river authority would do. But then on page 45, if the MUDs decide to refund the funds, it shows what each MUD will receive in a refund. So for MUD 1, you have roughly 6.6% of FY water sales. You'd be looking at about $338,000 to be returned to y'all.
Yeah.
So if this money, you have these 5 projects that are identified where you want to allocate this money to. If you didn't have that money, where would this money come from to do these 5 projects?
These funds would come from the FY 25 next year's budget. We'd be looking to put those in there. And let me explain why. So item number 1 is to meet the contractual obligations of the emergency reserve. Contractual obligation, we need to meet it, so we'd be asking for it next year. The AC water line project, what Harley talked about yet, earlier today, that's a MUD requested item. That's 1.6 million. And so if y'all still want to move forward with that contract, we need the funds. We'd be looking to fund it next year. The town center water line easements, these are easements basically associated with the town center water line project. We're trying to get it shovel ready, so that way we have all the land, all the design, everything that's under, that we need to begin construction ready. Or whenever y'all say move forward with construction, we can then go forward. Easements, this is about 6 months to a year project to get those underway.
But this project, number 3, the water line easement, is driven by the proposed construction of the parking garage and everything else that's going there in town center. Is that correct?
This is based on the existing line and where we have to replace it at. Right now, the line is not always in an easement, or the line is in an easement, but there's been development since it was constructed, so we need to move the line out of private property. And so right now, we're just trying to align the new line with new easement.
And that's SJRA responsibility. It's not the owners of the property.
It's our water line, so we need to make sure we have an easement to cover our water.
By the way, what he's requesting is historically what we've done in the past. Because we have a limit on how much they can retain as reserve. And when they exceed that, we then say what
Right.
is back. But we say, in the past, we have said, keep the money and use it for projects because it's going to be out of our pockets anyway.
Yeah, and another question I have is, are these cash reserves invested in bonds?
They are invested. I'm not sure what the exact investment type is. That's more for the accounting side, but I know there's, like y'all, there's regulations on what we can put the funds into, so I'm sure ours mimics.
So I wonder if we can earn more money putting that in our reserve funds, or whether they have the same options that we do.
Well, that's a very good question, and we can't answer it at this time, but I'm sure that Maureen can check with San Jacinto River Authority and give us are they getting the same interest rate as we're getting? Are we getting more?
That question was moot a couple of years ago when everybody was getting 0.1%. But now that we're getting 5% and more, that's a significant amount of money. So Maureen, you got a little homework.
Can we defer that for a month?
Possibly. It puts a little bit of a bind on certain things because what comes with this is a budget amendment that has to go to our board in a certain time.
Okay,
But we can definitely have that conversation whenever Maureen has time, and then information can be sent to you.
yeah, basically, if we're drawing more money than they are, we're using the same banks. And so it's really them telling us that they've reinvested so they're earning the same as we are.
Yeah, so if you're getting 2% and we're getting 5%, and you're talking couple $1 million here, $5 million, that's a pretty nice piece of change.
I think we're getting ahead of the game here, though. Go ahead.
Definitely look into it.
Yeah, do we need a motion on this?
There's no action item on this. What I'm just asking for is just general direction to your trustee on how y'all would vote in favor or against. You could also do a partial refund, throwing that out there, is if you say, okay, there's 5.1 million total, you keep 3, let's say, and y'all want 2 back, y'all could vote for that. So we're trying to put all the options on the table.
All the MUDs have to agree to either give back or give to you.
Majority of the trustees.
Okay. We're gonna vote on it at the next trustee meeting, so we have time. If I am assured that they're earning about the same, I would like you to give me the authority to approve them retaining the money.
I so move.
I second.
It doesn't need a motion. You just have to tell me what you want to do.
Give them the money for the projects.
Does everybody understand what the projects are?
Because it would come out of next year's, it would go into next year's budget, so we'd pay for it through a rate increase, correct? So we might as well use it.
That's been the general preference over time. These are, I've tried to put on here if they're contractual requested, but whatever else. There's only one project that may be kind of iffy, which is the town center water line easements. That's still a do it now or do it later type thing. We're just trying to get all the land and everything else taken care of, but every other project you see on here, we would put next year's.
I also don't think there's a big difference between interest rates. Just my humble opinion.
Well, I think it's interesting to note that unlike our capacity charges, this is based on usage. The refund is based on usage.
That's all I have. Unless you have any questions on anything else?
Just one more question on the relocation of the line. We're going from an 8-inch to a 12-inch line as well.
Town center?
Yeah,
Town center down Grogan's Mill is a 12-inch line currently. It is staying a 12-inch.
okay.
Six Pines, there's a little piece under there that's 12-inch going to 16.
Actually, I have one more question. Will you adjust for the next year's budget? Will you adjust so the reserve is not as big, or is there, I'm just wondering, maybe we should maybe look at that so we're not getting as much money, back, or
Yeah,
or that's just something contractual that you have to do. 'Cause
it's
this,
contractual, what we
Okay.
have to do. So the emergency reserve, it says to increase each year based off the engineering news record, CPI, construction desk or something. So we follow that. We haven't followed it because, years ago, the interest was keeping up with the inflation.
right.
Last few years, it hasn't. So now we're saying, okay, let's follow the contract and get back to where we should be. Besides that, we have the 3-month operating reserve. That changes every year slightly based on if expenses go up, then that 3 months it's gonna cost more. So besides those two, they just pretty much go up a little bit each year.
All right, thank you, Chris. Item 12, update on spring break. Any update?
I'm not a part of that, Eric. Are you a part of that?
Dan's been giving it, but I can, there was a meeting, I guess about a month ago, to give us an update on where they were. Decision was made at that meeting to go ahead and finish the study. And then there was a lot of discussion about, the fact that, there's some pretty significant funding that would be needed for that. And I think everybody, was of the opinion that in order to go towards, different legislators and politicians, et cetera, that we needed to have the final study in hand. And so decision was made to finish that study. They were almost finished anyway. They had identified that there was, well, that was for that Birch and Walnut would provide a certain lowering of the water surface elevation downstream. And so they're finishing that up at this point.
And what's the initial timeframe to finish everything?
It was about 3 months or so. Could be hopefully at the end of this first quarter.
And then that'll be the final that will be presented to whoever we deem necessary to help us proceed forward with that.
Yes. It's not the design of it, it's the drainage study that contemplates what would be needed in order to go forward. And then they would be doing some cost estimating as well.
Just remember, we don't have a flooding problem in Woodlands. Any questions on that? Okay, item 13, attorney's report. Good morning.
His son, so he apologizes for not being here today. For the attorney's report, I just wanted to update y'all. The deadline for applying for the director's election for May 4th, 2024 was Friday at 5 p.m. So we've received all your applications. It is going to be a contested election. All of the Woodlands elections contested except for Metro. So we have a timetable from Montgomery County because you're doing a joint election with the county. So we're just working to provide them what they need for them to conduct the election on your behalf. So
So we don't have the exact dates yet then? Do we have the exact dates of when the election is?
May 4th, and the early voting is April 22nd through April 30th.
There's 3 open seats and 7 candidates total.
I'm sorry.
3 open seats and 7 candidates.
For Mud One.
And he handed out the sheet on it.
It's on the website. Correct.
You all got that. These are the people who are running.
It's also on the website. You can find it on the website too. I found it
Yes.
last night.
So that's just an update for y'all. So all the applications have been received and processed. We've let Montgomery County know, and they're preparing the ballots, and we're working with them on all of that. But there'll be more to come. But you already adopted your order calling the joint election. So
Will you guide us when we have to file the first one of our expenditures?
yeah, so the county still has not provided. They there's like 4 exhibits that get attached to the order calling that we received from them, and we've received all except for Exhibit D, which is the pricing for the joint election. And the reason why is they see how many elections are actually going to be held and then split it among those. So we just found out how many elections are contested on Friday and let them know. So they're processing that. But as of now, we don't have a payment due, and we'll let you know when we do and what the.
Yeah, and it would be nice if you could tell us how many other people are participating in this election,
Yes.
because the cost goes up considerably if we have to handle it with 1 or 2 people participating.
Yeah, so it'll be split among all of the elections within Montgomery County that went joint with the county.
Yeah,
So we don't have that number yet, but it'll be the 9 Woodlands MUDs, and then I know of a couple others at SPH in Montgomery County that are going joint and having the election, but there'll be others throughout the county as
Yeah.
well.
Have
So
all the applicants been vetted? I mean, did they meet all the requirements and?
so Shirley, me and our paralegal and Brian have been reviewing all the applications. We received a lot last week right before the deadline. But we have gone through them, and there might have been a couple that had to be rejected. I can't remember, but
All things, but I think we've got a majority of them fixed.
When is the list released to the public? After the withdrawal period, or is it going out this week? List of candidates.
The list candidates are online.
Did you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people may withdraw after they.
Yeah, so there is an opportunity to withdraw an application that was submitted this week, if someone wishes to do that.
Hopefully.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, all the applicants have been reviewed. They're all
We reviewed all
resident and they signed everything they're supposed to sign, dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's.
Yes.
All right.
And if there weren't any that, I can't remember exactly in the Woodlands, but if there weren't any that complied, we would reject them, and then they'd resubmit. So
and how many of the 10 WWA MUDs are holding an election?
9, all except for Metro,
MUD, except Metro,
all except for Metro.
because Metro doesn't have any citizens in
It
Metro.
doesn't really have any residents.
So they're all appointed.
Okay. Anything else?
So the other 9 are all contested.
They're all congested. That's it for me. That's all I have for the attorney's report. Item 14 is mine as well. The exhibit that we received from the engineer is included within your packet. We received those late last week, so we don't have the resolutions ready. We wanted to compare the exhibits to the exhibits from last year and see if any district's status changed, and then inquire as to any changes. So we'll have those resolutions ready for you for next month and on the drive ahead of time.
Yeah, it says consider an act.
We're gonna defer.
Okay, we can defer.
All right. Is that it for yours?
That's it.
Okay. And so there's no action on item 14 today?
Nope.
All right, item 15, consider an act, thank you. Item 15, consider an act on the district annual customer report.
John? Can we do that one? Sorry.
Sorry,
Report, it's customer, the annual report.
morning.
Morning, John.
Sorry, that report did not make it actually in your packet, so I'm gonna hand that out to you. So, where we are at is we have had quite a bit of back and forth to draft these bullet points as you see them now. We can certainly still amend these. Our due date would be the 25th. That gives us enough time to get in the printer so that can insert into next month's bill. So what we're looking to do here is see if there are any additional edits. If not, we'll move forward with it as is and get it in the bill and then get it online as well.
Did you need feedback from us on this one? Do you got everything back?
I got everything back. Anybody that's provided feedback is inserted here. But again, we can still make amendments. We can do that here now, or if you need to relay those after the meeting, we still have time.
The only thing I think, looking ahead, mud is lower, just needs to be all uppercase. Not to be
I'm sorry, we got a typo?
well, it's mud is in mud, it's in low. It should be a MUC uppercase.
Elections.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be nitpicky.
Is that?
I think that's just everything we talked about.
You guys have received it before, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, I guess if you need any changes, you can get back with John on it, but Earl Andrew was really handling it for us, so. Get with Andrew and then you can get with John.
Okay, we'll do a final communication on that.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good. Just want to point one thing
Yeah.
out over here. So everybody's email address is going to be your Woodlands Water email address. So if you're not checking that regularly, you'll want to set up an auto forward to whatever email address you do want.
Well, you can do that. Oh.
Yeah, and we can help you with that. Of course. But we do want to have that Woodlands Water email address down. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, what would you report on the increase in the people that are using your internet?
Well, the next item is the general manager's report. I thought.
Oh, you got it on that.
Well, I thought since he was standing up, I'll just.
Yeah,
take
he
it
was-
first.
okay,
That's
sure.
okay.
Yeah. So happy to answer that. And I do have some stats for you on that in the report. So if you and go to page 64, you'll see your comp report for February. And what I've done this month is shown you examples of our current education outreach pieces. Then I've embedded some wrap-up statistics for 2023, excuse me. Last month, we talked about our community survey results. Those were quite favorable, but we want to bring more information to bear to see how we're doing. And so this, some additional metrics to consider. So we look at Houston Chronicle, Impact, Woodlands Community Magazine. Those are three primary outlets for advertising. Houston Chronicle, so that's a digital syndicate. So that puts our pieces in a couple hundred different online sites, right? CNN, Fox News, you name it, right? So it's not just Chronicle. We had 28,000 people engaged with those ads. That means they scrolled over it. We know they looked at it. And some even clicked on it. Community impact, we don't get that kind of information from them, but we do know that we're hitting 160,000 in readership each month.
Do you hear that? Say that again.
160,000 is their monthly readership.
That's amazing, amazing.
And we do a quarter page ad on the print piece And then there is a digital presence as well, but the big impact is community print. Woodlands Community Magazine, that's been a big tool for us at 42,000 homes every single month. That one, I'll tell you, is up in the air right now going forward because they lost their printer. So they're out to bid with the new printer. So we're waiting to see from the township what that's going to look like going forward. Are they going to kind of just mimic what has been done? Will they go to just a digital presence? So this one's in flux. Hopefully it continues because studies show research, or they do a biannual survey, and it always comes out on top. It's the #1 source for information for our residents. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that will continue. Website visitation, Hartley. So last year we saw a 32% increase over 2022 page views. We saw a 48% increase over our 5-year average, previous 5-year average. And last year we had 115,000 unique visitors for the year. So Walt, if you visited 10 times over the course of the year, you count as one.
Really? That's kind of discernible.
And you know, we've done a lot of redesign to that website to make it more navigable, to help get some of our important information front and center, and more consistent with our branding. Next down the water bills, just those are just examples of current and upcoming bill. And then on down to Woodlands Water Weekly there on page 65. So we maintained a very consistent 56 to 58% open rate. So almost 60% of folks that get this email every Monday morning open it up and look at it. So we don't have all of our accounts on that list. Got about 70-some%. Do the math. That means we're talking to almost 40% of our entire customer base weekly in depth through this piece. So this is a really important tool for us. And then we also take a lot of the information that we develop for that weekly, and that feeds our social media. So that's a nice efficiency for us.
I'd like to compliment you on the work that you've done. I think you're doing a fine job.
Well, we're trying to get better, and we're trying to see if we're doing a good job. That's what these metrics come into play, but thank you. And it is very much a team effort. Eric, Maureen, Tori, so many folks have their hands in our communications here, and spend a lot of effort on it. So it is a team effort. On to social media, we saw 109% increase in reach over 2022. That's now people that saw our stuff. And so that more than doubled last year for Facebook. WaterSmart is one more way to see, you know, how effective we are, because that's putting the messages into action, right? And WaterSmart is a key tool for us. So we put a lot of energy into trying to grow WaterSmart registrations. That one we saw a dip last year. So in 2022, we were averaging 241 new registrations monthly. In 2023, we averaged 181 new registrations monthly. Now, and we're at about 40% of total accounts are on WaterSmart. So good news and bad news, we continue to trend up, just not at the rate we had been. However, when you first kick something like that off, you're getting all the low hanging fruit. All people that want it, you know, are signing up. Now it gets harder and harder as we move along. But we're going to talk to you here in the next couple of months about some, I think, what are going to be some pretty effective strategies for increasing that rate of registration. We'll bring that to you, like I said, in the next couple of months. Any questions on any of the metrics for last year?
I like to tap on what Bob just said. You know, I think it's excellent the way this whole thing has changed. And I know I get a lot of questions from people now, so I definitely got to read it every week, you know, when it comes out too. But the only thing I would maybe add, and maybe something I'm overlooking, but every time SJRA or somebody's out there doing some work, you know, somebody always pops up the question, hey, what's going on down at such and such, you know, and I don't know if that's something we want to start putting in there that, hey, you probably saw trucks at the corner of such and such, and, you know, this is what's going on there.
I think there is opportunity there, and we've had discussions about exactly that, how best to do that with the right kind of information to get out and how to get that information out. But we want folks to know there's work being done, and You know, there's projects underway and some issues we're having with infrastructure and so forth. So
Because
Agreed.
before it gets on Facebook and you have all the pundits that try to tell everybody what's going on, who have no idea what the hell's going on. But, you know, they know what's going on.
yeah, I mean,
Creates trust.
we want to lead the story, yeah. And that's a major reason we added Nextdoor last year. It's just one more way to get things out on a neighborhood level, try to get in front of stories. But more work to be done. Last thing, and I'll leave you alone. Update on the Holloway Structure Communications process. So Holloway is the consultant that was secured in the last year to help us develop a strategic plan and implement communications around infrastructure renewal. We're moving through that process. They completed their assessment of estuary and Woodlands water, what we're currently doing. They gave us good feedback on that. Now they're in this, creating the strategic plan. And so we've met with them. We've seen the initial draft of that plan. I'm quite encouraged by it. I think we're going to get a good product from that, a very useful product. We will finalize that plan in the next few weeks and start implementing. I'll have more to report on that whole process.
Okay. Any questions for John? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Mr. General Manager.
One of the things to add, over when we already talked about I'll give you a reminder that the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium is this Thursday. There's a flyer there. If you hadn't signed up, and a couple of us will be going. And I did want to give you an update on One Water. There's been a number of meetings, kind of scoping meetings behind the scenes with some key folks, and then we kind of created some draft goals and presented them to leadership of the township, just to kind of discuss what this might look like as it gets reconstituted. So that is underway and moving forward. Maybe a renaming and some tweaking, but it's had a couple meetings and it's moving forward.
I'd like to add to that, that just yesterday, James Nowak made a comment at George's Coffee Club that Woodlands does not have a flooding problem. And I would have liked to tell him, well, don't tell that to the 400 people in precinct 3 and outside precinct 3 and in Tiburon and Creekside, in Timber Ridge, Timber Lakes, and in Grogan's Point. I don't think those 400 people would agree with him on that. I think that's one of the issues that we face, is a lot of complacency in the Woodlands about flooding issues.
Well, I think the message we're trying to get out is that, you know, maybe it's not in your neighborhood, but it's a regional issue. And things outside the Woodlands impact the Woodlands. And, you know, that's one of the things that I think we're all concerned about is, you know, every time you turn around, they're building something off of 1488, 2978, you know, it just one development after another. You know, this water's got to go someplace. That's its opinion.
That's all I have.
Any questions for General Manager? Okay, thank you. Number 17, our drought plan, contingency plan.
Take this one, you have a water conservation and drought contingency plan. It's RNS 35, and Shelley put it on the drive for you. It's been 5 years since there's been a comprehensive review of it, and we're required actually to take a look at both of those plans and see if there's any required updates every 5 years. So it was done back in 2019, and it's time to start that process again this year. I believe that y'all have kind of already initiated.
We had our kickoff meeting with Reese and Nichols. They're helping us update that. As you know, ours is tied pretty closely to Chris and River Authority's triggers. But we also have some new programs, the stuff that John's working on, public education, all the rebate programs we have, that will also be part of our.
Mhm.
We kicked that off, that week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are paid off. And it's due May 1st.
So once they finish the review, if there are updates that are required, we'll obviously revise RNS 35 and then adopt that at board meeting.
Okay, so there's no action on our part, but you could give us feedback when you update it.
And once we have it, we'll bring it back to you and highlight the changes. I expect there will be some minor ones.
Okay, so there's no action that we have to take.
No, no.
Okay,
I move we authorize the review of the water conservation and drought contingency plan
You can take a motion.
okay.
by our council and staff.
All right, is there a second on that?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, trustees report. Hardly, do you have anything?
Page 62 and 63. And I'll ask the general manager to comment on the replacement of Neil Gaynor by Imelda Diaz. Comment on that.
Sure, several years ago, the upper watershed of the San Saro River Authority regional drainage group through, I think, the trustees created a seat for the upper watershed for an upper watershed seat. At that point, Neil Gaynor was appointed to that seat. At that point, he has recently decided to step down from that position. There's been quite a bit of analysis done over the last few years since its inception, and he felt like this was a good time to step down as the next phase of the organization is to start looking at funding for some of the projects that have been identified. And so the trustees did make a motion and approve the endorsement of a candidate, Imelda Diaz, an individual that has been with Harris County Flood Control for years and a consultant. And so that was the recommendation. That recommendation or endorsement will go before the Region 6 Flood Planning Group, and then they'll identify perhaps additional candidates and then make their selection.
I talked to Neil about that and he's spoke very highly of Imelda as being very, very qualified. So
We had her resume in the packet for the trustees. And she is very well qualified. And I want to point out that that's different from Region H, where Arthur Bredehoff is our representative. And if the general manager will explain to us how we're divided up into regions, and we're in Region H for planning for water usage in the future years.
So that's a long discussion.
Yeah, well, the state has authorized that. They've divided it into different sections. And
For long-term water planning.
yeah,
correct.
and
That's Region H, different than the flood planning that we just talked about.
it's different. It's a different animal. And San Jacinto River Authority has been kind of heading that up for years now. Are you still heading it up?
Yeah, we still hosted at the Conroe office.
Yes. And they are really doing some wonderful things about projecting in the future what is the population growth, what are going to be the water needs. And Arthur Bredehoff has done a wonderful job in representing us at this level. But Water is a statewide problem and there are a lot of different factions involved. These are two of them we're talking about right here. So that's about it, except would you talk about Vertex One, please?
I just reported an update that.
Yes.
Moving forward with the migration of data. There's 5 data migration steps that we have to do. Initial one to kind of get things set up, and then as we get closer and closer and closer to the go live with the new software, we'll need to do some pretty quick data migrations from the accounts that are within our current software as we migrate them to the new software and do tests, kind of a soft test behind the scene before it goes live. And so we've needed to hire a consultant in order to do those next 4 data migrations.
And we're looking at about 9,600 per month. Okay, to change our software and update our people on how to use it. Is that correct?
It's to do the data migration.
Yes.
To get the accounts from one language essentially to the language of the new software.
This is the program that you presented some months ago back to us.
Just an update.
Okay.
But you know, this is, you might not know when you're looking at our budget. And that's why we're bringing it to your attention, because it's going to be a $9,600 cost.
Anything
Why
else,
are we
Harley?
migrating to this new system? I'm assuming it's a superior data system than what we now have.
Well, it's our billing software, but in order to get the 34,000 accounts from the current software, we have to migrate that. Data migration is taking those account numbers and the account
Yes.
identifiers and putting them into the new language of the new software.
So why are we doing this in the first place?
That was presented
It was
many months ago. And we had a whole presentation on it. I can pull that presentation.
Well, I suffer from dementia, so I completely
No
forgot
worries.
that.
There was a lot of efficiencies to be gained. There's cost savings to be gained long-term after a couple of years. It was about a 2.4 year buyback
Okay.
on the software. And then from the consumer's perspective, well, both internal staff and the consumer's perspective, we felt like this would be a lot better streamlined, a lot more efficient and user-friendly.
Okay.
So those were some of the highlights.
Okay. Anything else, Harley?
No.
All right, item 18, no, we got that, choose that, 19, recess in the closed session, we have no need to do that. 20, reconvene, no need to do that. 21, any matters to be placed on future agenda?
Will we have our audit
The audits.
next month?
If you'd like one, I can print you one right now if you want.
Well, no, our audit for month 1, is that going to be an agenda item next month?
You
It
approved
was-
it last month and it was final, and then the final version is available.
Would you like one?
Thank you.
Mike,
Shelley and I were talking about something that John had mentioned. I don't want to run this by Katie. He said if you're not using your Woodlands Water email address to forward it to another email address, is that something that would be subject to open records?
Wouldn't that make their personal email address subject to open records?
So forward,
You're not using your Woodlands Water email address, you can set it up to automatically forward to maybe a personal email or some other email address. Does that subject that other email address to open records request?
I think either way, it could be subject to an open records request.
Okay,
Um,
so you might not want to do that.
I don't
Just
think
your phone- your
I don't think that
Woodlands
having a
Water.
Woodlands Water domain really protects it from an open records
Yeah,
request.
Woodlands Water would be subject to open records.
Yeah,
I think the other email.
so you were thinking if it was personal.
To their
If it forwards to the
Yeah.
other one, is that all now subject to open?
I can look into it. I think it probably still, could be,
Okay.
because it'd be based on the subject matter of what was being discussed, not the email address itself.
I think it would be because I know on the DSC, that's why we don't use our personal.
Mhm.
Because it would be subject to the open records
Yeah.
request that a resident is making, some other entities
Yeah.
making.
And if there were a request, it'd be easier for you to just pull the emails from your Woodlands Water email instead of having the rest of your personal emails.
Yeah.
Being looked at, but I still think it'd be based on the subject matter. So if your other personal emails had nothing to do with the information requested, then those wouldn't have to be provided.
If your email is forwarded, does a copy still remain on the Woodlands Water?
Yes.
So it does. Okay, then there's really no need to, under the Open Record Act to,
Go to the personal.
yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If it's still within the Woodlands Water, it's in both, then,
Yeah.
yeah,
We could actually pull them if there were a request.
yeah, you could just pull the Woodlands Water.
This is the whole idea about having
Yeah.
So don't
woodlandswater.org domain.
Don't respond back from your personal email then.
Yes, I would not
Log-
respond back from your person.
Would it be easier if somehow the notification went like to Shelley or something like that, and then we could be notified, hey, you've got an email you need to look at?
I don't know if any emails gets
You
here.
want to do that?
I
I mean, I don't know how many emails come in, for mud directors. I mean, I know I haven't checked mine, so. I mean, is that something I go to every day to see if some resident's written something? Usually they probably would contact you anyways before they contact us.
Yeah, they usually send something to us.
Yeah. So much for that idea. Let's move on. Okay, anything else to put on future agenda?
Yes, and this relates to the One Water Task Force. There's been some discussion about hiring a part-time person to work with the chairman of the One Water Task Force. And we kind of tossed out a number of $50,000 to $60,000 and I don't know how that cost would be shared between the MUDs and the township. But at some point, we're going to need to approve some funding for this. So I'd like to put that on the agenda for discussion and maybe action next month.
Does that anticipate a part-time person?
Oh, well, that's what the money would be used for the labor and expenses that might be associated. I think a lot of people felt that a trustee just cannot, or that the chairman of the task force just cannot devote all the time that's required in addition to other township director duties. And I think that's one of the reasons why the previous task force failed, along with the transportation task force. It was just too much for a volunteer to do. So,
Are we getting ahead of the game again though? I mean, until we have the process laid out and then we can ascertain what's it gonna cost to do this? I mean, we could put it on the agenda, but I mean.
we don't have to
act.
act on it.
I mean, I doubt if we'll have anything finalized by then anyways.
No.
If you want it on the agenda, we can put it there, but I just think we're ahead of the game.
Updates, and as that progresses, that conversation progresses, and we'll dig into it for
All
sure.
right. Anything else on the agenda? All right, can I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye, any opposed? Adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone.